Where is it? Can't hit. Come on. There isn't a show that has changed my life like the animated series. In fact, very few things in general have. The way in which it is made is timeless, and then it's perfected in the way that it's drawn by Bruce Timm. It gives you a vintage 1930s skyline of Art Deco buildings, big 90s bat computers, then it gives you futuristic bat wings. Scenes are often drawn on black paper, making neon lights shine brighter, colors stand out more, and shadows lurk around every corner. The beauty of the atmosphere is complemented and enhanced by its cast of incredibly talented voice actors who defined and set the standard for what each character should be held to. Kevin Conroy will always be my Batman. Mark Hamill will always be my Joker. And every time I read Nightwing or Grayson, I read it in the voice of Lauren Lester. All except the Scarecrow. He friggin' looks like Earthworm Jim put on a straw hat and a sack over his head. Only for one episode though, then they remodeled him and remodeled him again. But now everyone seems to use the same look, so... But this? Lastly, what I love is how the show gets better with age. And I'm not talking about the age of the show itself, but the age of its viewers. Watching the show as an adult, I think, why did my parents let me watch this? But then I immediately turn around and say, if I ever have kids, I can't wait to show this to them. Animated series not only entertains you in a way that creates memories for years on end, but you relate to the struggles the older you get. Watching it now, you realize the demise of the villain isn't always the, hey, we got him moment. It's the moment where you discover the source of what drove them to become what they are.
Why couldn't you just let me make believe?
This Batman isn't a thoughtless brute or an emotionless, distant, cold loner. He's a symbol you look up to. As kids, he's a figure that I looked up to, and as an adult, the same, but in a much deeper way because you can relate so much better. This intro is way longer than what I wanted it to be. But anyway, here in no particular order are a few of my favorite moments from the animated series. Favorite episodes, actually. Movies will not be included because, Mask of the Phantasm. You get your own episode. Yeah. Anyway, let's get it on. Now this is the most depressing freaking episode of all time. Within the first 30 seconds of it, you just want to give up. Like, look at Batman here, just sitting in his throne, slumped over, like he's the king of nothing, contemplating if it's all even worth it. And this scene... holy cow.
A weary body can be dealt with, but a weary spirit, that's something else.
Like, really? But in the end, you can't blame the guy for feeling this way. I mean, visits his mother's grave right here. Young Seth Green gets beat to hell. This fat guy lands on the flowers that Bruce just put out for his parents. We have Jim Gordon get shot. Then Bullock blames Batman. And then Batman blames himself. smashes everything, just totally destroys the Batcave. On top of it all, you have friggin' Jazzman here, making the worst dad jokes of all time.
I've been waiting a long time to play taps for Gordon. Let's just say it was time to pay the piper. Time to face the music, Gordon.
When you look too long into the abyss looks back through you.
The tormentor becomes the tormented. You either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Remember when Lando Calrissian said that in that one Batman movie? And how ironic is it he says this to Dick Grayson, who in many storylines, he actually falls into the same trap. But that's where the writing of the show really shines. Often Batman is overshadowed by his villain, and often the character of Bruce Wayne and Batman, they take the back seat, so it isn't developed as much as it should be. It's too easy just to create some crazy new villain for Batman to overcome and save the day. But even though they set a low tier villain like the Jazzman in this episode, you could set anyone in here. You could set Joker, Ra's al Ghul, anyone. The way the story is written, they could never overshadow the character of Batman. Next up, we actually have a fun episode. This is the one where Batman teams up with his old magical friend Zatanna. I like how she acts like she's like afraid of her own trick right there, and she like forgets that she just summoned a snake. Well, wait a minute. What's up with Bruce's eyes right here? Like, look at him. Like Zatanna's got him all googly-eyed after looking at her for 2 seconds.
Yes, intense, driven, moody. She'd never recognize you now.
So right here you have the most important part of the episode, which is the flashback that takes us back to Bruce's time training under Zatanna's father, Zatara, under the name of John Smith. So Zatanna doesn't know that John Smith is actually billionaire Bruce Wayne. I don't know why, but this scene has a very strong anime feel to it. Bruce also references his upcoming trip to Japan to train, denying her request for him to stay with her. Now, sorry, but I think justice can take the back seat for once, you know what I mean?
No goodbye hug? See? It's not so bad.
Anyway, this is actually from a couple episodes back where we see some of Bruce's time in Japan studying martial arts. One of my favorite things about this episode is the amount of foreshadowing all over the place. You also see Zatanna bring out a special side to Bruce where he acts erratically. Without thinking, he acts on impulse. So a magic trick goes wrong, and Zatanna just tells the guy, yeah, take it easy.
Where's the money?
Where's the money, he says. It's right there, isn't it?
It's gone. What have you done with it?
Now, take it easy, Irv.
You just misplaced not only all of this guy's money, but probably the money of half the people in the crowd.
Now, take it easy, Irv.
Don't take it easy. No big deal. Zatanna is arrested, and this brings out a part of Batman that is not often seen, along the lines of how he acts actually towards Andrea Beaumont in Mask of the Phantasm. He breaks her out of the vehicle on the way to jail and turns her into a fugitive on the run. Normally, Batman would work on his own to race against time and get her released legally, but not this time. We also see Zatanna say things that cause a reaction from Bruce, which is actually good to see for once, almost like it's catching him off guard. The episode ends with Zatanna putting together who's under the cowl.
So, you never wrote.
I meant to, really.
These two characters mold together so well, extremely similar to how Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne interact.
What happened that made you put this on?
A painful memory. And a promise.
I'd say you're keeping that promise pretty well.
In every medium, whether it be comics or a TV show or an animated movie, in every instance, it's always a great story. It's always a great time whenever these two share the spotlight together. A whole video could be made on just part 1 of this 2-part episode. You have no idea how happy I am that the episode that lets Dick Grayson shine also got an Emmy. Robin is way freaking cooler than Batman. Everyone dreams of being Batman. They make friggin' dumb shirts about it and memes all over the web. Friggin' Hot Topic is riddled with Batman gear. But as a kid, I didn't want to be Batman. I wanted to be Robin. Why? Because he's a crime fighter. He makes funny jokes. He's handsome. He has cool hair. He gets to hang out with Batman while jumping around on rooftops and punching people. So much better. He gets to be his own person. The writers perfectly go deeper on the character of Dick Grayson, the feelings of Bruce Wayne towards him, and the bond of the dynamic duo. They establish this from the very start in the one-sided dialogue between the two.
You sure about this extortion ring?
Uh-huh.
It's been 4 hours.
Uh-huh.
You still think they'll show?
Uh-huh.
Lucky for me, you're such a good conversationalist.
This shows the differences in personality, yet also the mutual bond between the two. They have a cool fight sequence where they beat up some thugs pretending like they're local iron workers or something. Once they get the intel on who they work for, Batman gets all weird about it. Robin is kicked off the case, and it's painfully obvious why. He's trying to keep something from Robin. Robin does some investigating of his own. You find out this Billy Marin character is just an alias of Tony Zuko. Tony Zuko is the spoiled nephew of a mobster, and he is responsible for the death of the elder Flying Graysons. And the greatest part about this episode are the flashbacks. Without, you can't fully appreciate what's happening in the current day. It also has more of an effect on the viewer than if you simply made a prologue episode of the death of the Graysons. While you see a wedge coming between Batman and Robin, the flashback reminds you that in the beginning, it was only Bruce Wayne and Richard Grayson, not crime-fighting partners. They're not the dynamic duo. It was Bruce Wayne witnessing a young boy fall into the same fate that he fell into and knowing what he's going through. There are so many times we see Robin as the comic relief to Batman's brooding nature.
Yahoo!
Which he is. So many times we don't see the anger, though, and the pain that's in the character of Robin. The fact that he, too, is on a crusade for justice, you forget. You forget about that. He hasn't lost the joy of helping other people. It's not just a mission for him. He enjoys it. Yet in the climax of this episode, we see him almost lose sight of that and take justice into his own hands in one of the coolest freaking scenes of all time, where he rides up on a motorcycle out of nowhere, drags Tony Zuko down the pier, and gets ready to throw Zuko off of it to his death.
I don't believe this!
You're through, Zuko. Forever.
That's so, Birdie boy!
But in this moment, I noticed two things. Do you hear Robin's voice?
I've waited a long time.
Here we see the deep, dark growl come out. This actually foreshadows the voice that he will be using as Nightwing in the future. This is ironic because earlier in the Batcave, Robin mentions,
I'll never be like him, Alfred. Never.
Here we see the same dark shift in mood that we see in The Dark Knight. Here we see the dark potential almost take hold, that he comes even closer to his Nightwing. Some may even say that he gives into that nature. The other thing that you notice is Tony Zuko. You realize what he is in this moment. Having built up through these 2 episodes, you realize that he's a coward. Think of it, he's out there and just intimidating people for protection money, getting beat up, and then like a little baby, shamelessly getting revenge like a coward. He retaliates out of embarrassment and spite. He's just had his he's butthurt, had his feelings hurt. That's why. No bigger picture. He's the spoiled nephew of a big-time mobster, only getting where he is out of a feeling of obligation from his capable uncle.
Around here anymore.
He doesn't realize what his actions will bring upon his family once Batman finds out of his connections. Once Batman begins his hunt, you sense this paranoia coming from Tony, and it only gets worse as it goes on. When we first meet him, he's smug, stupid, yet calm. Thinks himself untouchable. But after Batman's initial scare, you see a change. Cut 9 years later, and Zuko is still watching over his shoulder for Batman. 9 years of fear. 3 to 4 fake names to protect his identity. You see him finally snap when he suspects Batman is on his case 9 years later, and sends an entire clip into the roof.
What's that?
What's what?
This particular part of this scene takes so long that you as the viewer think, holy hell, is it skipping? When's he gonna stop? Your feeling is confirmed by the goons his uncle pays to protect his moron nephew.
Boss, calm down, okay?
You constantly see his paranoid eyes open wide, as if every bump in the night has kept him up for years. It blinds him so much that he forgets moments later that he just emptied an entire drum magazine into the ceiling and has no more to kill the injured Batman right there in front of him. Simply put, we aren't dealing with the Joker here. That's what I'm getting at. We're not dealing with the Joker. We're not dealing with a human popsicle. We're not even dealing with a mad scientist who has a fancy gas to do all of his work for him. We're dealing with a reckless, low-level thug. He's nothing special. Nothing at all. He's not a supervillain. He's just your average criminal. Yet, he's just as important and has made just as big as an impact as any of the others. So despite the confrontation and the tension between the two, the anger that Robin has and that has been building towards his mentor, the words express that he may never take another order from Batman again. In this moment, Batman saves not just Robin, but Dick Grayson in his greatest time of need.
Enough. You can't let your emotions get the best of you.
Stuff your advice, Batman. You and your stone-cold heart. You don't know how I feel. How could you? Batman, I didn't mean to. I'm sorry.
The next line is what separates the animated series from something like Frank Miller's All-Star adaptation or any of the other dark, cold, careless Batman adaptations. It's what ties in all the flashbacks and sums it all up at the end. This episode and line are what really makes the animated series special, not just for the younger viewers, but the older adults like me who grew up with it and we revisit it again down the line. It blows our mind because it's more relevant and it's more easily understandable today than it ever has been.
You were right, you know. Not bringing me along. You knew I'd take it too personally.
It wasn't that, Robin. It wasn't that at all. Zuko's taken so much. Caused you so much pain. I couldn't stand the thought that he might take you, too.